All right, so let's see what this right-click examine Sanctum of Rebirth is. I glanced over it, but I ultimately missed the live stream because I was sleeping. But yeah, so let's see. It looks like this is supposed to be them including us more in the development because this new update could potentially change the meta in a lot of ways, both like the actual like PVM meta of like what's good and what's not, and how they deal with like dying and stuff like that. So I'm curious to see what direction they want to go in. So it's coming out in July. That's really quick. So that's in what, a month and a half, basically? That's pretty sick. This new boss dungeon, 1 to 4 players can delve into the Sanctum to take on 3 unique bosses. Okay, we already know that. Takes the Elite Dungeon experience to focus it down to just the bosses. So I would be curious to see if this means that this is an Elite Dungeon or if it's Elite Dungeon-esque. What I mean is, if this is an Elite Dungeon, then the chest bonus and the reduced damage in Elite Dungeons are going to be in effect from day one. That's pretty good. So for all those who haven't beaten Curse of the Blackstone, it's probably worth a beating either way. If it's Elite Dungeon-esque, then this doesn't matter at all. Want the Sanctum to feel more like a challenging series of encounters, but also to be less daunting as a goal for those early in the PVM journey. Interesting. Okay. So they're asking for feedback. Okay. Death is a daunting concept, often a big roadblock to players, getting stuck into a boss. With the Sanctum of Rebirth, we have the chance to try something a little new and explore an alternate death scenario for normal difficulty. In this new death scenario, we want to try flipping the concept of death as a failure point and more as a stumbling block. In this design, a defeated player isn't out of the fight, just removed from it from a short time. My assumption is that this doesn't work in solo. Or if it works in solo, your deaths just don't matter. So if this just doesn't work in solo, that's probably fine. Yeah, so if in solo, this means that your deaths just don't matter, cool. As a balancing point, that's like a little bit weird. Because you don't want, like, on one hand, you don't want your players to be so scared of death that they don't play the game. They're just so worried that, like, they can never actually learn because they're panicking every time they get hit. That's bad. So removing death as a failure sounds like a good idea. The issue is that you don't want to encourage, I'm just not going to learn how to do the boss because eventually I'm going to kill it because I can't die. That's something that I'm not sure I agree with that learning strategy, but it is worth it. It is worth exploring. For instance, one thing that they could try would be like, you get passively rewarded for your deaths. So let's say that the bad luck mitigation in this bossing system is dying. That would be interesting because that explicitly rewards newer players and players who are less familiar with bossing, especially if it's like a hidden mechanic so they don't release any numbers about it. That could be something that's really interesting where like once you've hit your 100th death, oh, your next kill, you're going to get a broadcast. That could be interesting, especially if they don't say that that's what's happening, because then your newer players are getting rewarded. And like, let's say it only works for your first broadcast. Now your newer players are getting rewarded with drops relatively early on. Yeah, that could be something as well, where like each death gives you a 1% increase, or like gives you a 1% increase in damage, or 1% increase in drops. Like something like that could be really nice. But yeah, like it makes sense that thematically giving the Sanctum of Rebirth, like not dying, like sure, that checks out. The big issue is that RuneScape players are pretty lazy. So I feel like not dying means most players are just going to go in, put on Soul Split and AFK because dying has no penalty. It's like, okay, it takes longer, but I'm literally AFK. So does it take longer at all, right? If I'm playing another game on this screen and I'm in the Sanctum of Rebirth on this screen, then it's actually costing me 0 time, and I'm getting infinite adrenaline, or I'm getting infinite GP per hour because I'm spending 0 time on it, right? But yeah, that's worth considering, is that you don't want poor incentives into the game. It's kind of the issue with the bad luck mitigation in Zamrock, where the incentive is to do 10 kills at 100% every time you get a broadcast, because that starts the bad luck mitigation. That's a pretty bad design, in my opinion. So it's not something that I would want to see replicated through this, oh, dying doesn't matter, it's slower kills. It's like, okay, well, that doesn't matter if I'm not actively playing the game, right? If I just leave on Soul Split with Crypt Bloom and say, okay, I'll be back in 2 hours, and I get to come back to I cleared the dungeon, that's probably not worth it. But yeah, overall, this is a cool design. I would be curious to see what direction that this goes in. Generally, in solo, you probably don't want to give solo players the ability to come back for free. There should be either some penalty, or, like, for instance, let's say that your max health gets reduced by like 10% for each death. Then if you die 10 times, you lose. That's it. Like, obviously by death, 7 is probably going to be pretty impossible to stay alive, but that's the type of thing where you want to make it so dying isn't down but not out, but you don't want it to be free, where dying just doesn't matter. So that's kind of the system that I would want to see, or that's something I would be curious to experiment with. Okay, so the deaths in the Sanctum, this seems interesting. It could be decently bad, but it seems interesting. Okay, tier 95 magic weapons. I believe this is just a loadout of these. This wand looks kind of sick. This wand also looks sick. I don't love this one. Wait, these are all the same thing. This is front, side, back, I guess. Okay, this wand looks sick. I like this a lot. The orb looks... Oh, okay. I don't hate the orb. This looks fine. 1 second. I forgot how to X out of this. Oh, the Aurora dyed one looks nuts, though. Yeah, these weapons look really, really cool. So they want to test 3 different variants of it. Okay. First effectively generating a stacking buff using non-basics and consuming that buff using basics for increased adrenaline, with the second benefit building off the first, giving a flat cooldown reduction for wild magic. The buff is consumed, giving players a more stable flow of damage. So non-basic abilities generate 2 stacks of Insatiable. I wonder if these stacks add together. So if I do Wild Magic, does this give me Insatiable for 7.2 seconds? That's worth considering. Basic attacks to consume it, increasing adrenaline gain by 25%, multiplicative. This is fine. I feel like Magic's issue isn't that it doesn't have enough adrenaline. I feel like Magic's issue is that it doesn't have anything to do with that adrenaline. Especially if you're like not in your Fracture Staff rotation. So consuming Insatiable reduces the cooldown of Wild Magic by 6 seconds. What's the cooldown of Wild Magic? Cooldown is 24 seconds, or reduces it to 14 seconds. This obviously matters. Oh, okay, actually, so it's sort of like a looping system where you want to Wild Magic, basic, non-basic, basic, your Wild Magic is back up again. Like, that seems pretty interesting. This could be interesting. The second set will be building off the first set, but instead of a stable flow of cooldown reduction, it'll be a more powerful RNG effect. So same thing, consuming Insatiable has a 25% chance to reduce the cooldown of Wild Magic. So the question is, what does extra stacks of Insatiable do? Right? Like, does having 2 stacks mean it lasts longer? So it's 25% increased adrenaline for 7.2 seconds? Or is it 50% adrenaline for 3.6 seconds. And then insatiable potentially stacks it infinitely. If it's the latter, it's really strong, but hard to use optimally. If it's the prior, it doesn't seem that good. The same thing here, consuming insatiable, 25% chance to reduce the cooldown of wild magic. If consuming 4 stacks of insatiable refreshes your wild magic, there's a lot of potential there. So this is something that could be very, very, very cool. But it's hard to say without having my hands on it. An alternate playstyle of increasing damage over time effects that ramps up power the more you stack this new debuff and adds effect like refreshing their cooldowns or making them hit instantly. Okay. 1. Dot damage deals 30% more damage. Okay. 2. Damage over time generates essence corruption. So each of your dot effects... Ooh, so this is interesting. I wonder if this is each time you press the button, it's 1 essence corruption, or if it's each instance of dot damage is essence corruption. Because this could be like broken. If it's each time a dot ability does damage, this is 20 abilities. And that's really good, right? Because let's see, at 20 stacks or at max stacks, your damage over time abilities have a 30% chance to empower, dealing the damage instantly and refreshing. This is nuts. This is really good. Obviously, this has RNG, so it could just splash. This is really good. Deal bonus damage against enemies, 100% of stacks plus 100% of your magic level. Now, the question here is this on hit or is this total damage? So, this sounds like on hit, you'll get 199 damage. That's pretty good. That's not that much, but that's pretty good. Especially because we already have ways to bump up our damage over time. Honestly, I'd probably want to see this number be a little bit higher. But again, this doesn't seem bad. Yeah, on hit seems very powerful. The number seems a little low. Because, like, ideally, the point of this is that you're giving up Fractured Staff for this. So if that's the case, this number seems low. Because you're giving up all of the broken crit stuff from Fractured Staff for 199 damage on hit. That just doesn't seem very good. Maybe if it was like 500 damage on hit, now we're talking. But that doesn't seem too powerful. Thematically, it's really cool. Doesn't seem that powerful though. The same thing here with the max stacks being 100. If this is on hit, each stack, like you get each stack on hit, each dot is 5 hits, I think. This is, you stack this really, really fast, but you don't get that much for it. I don't know how good. Well, let me see. Let me see. I'm on normal spellbook, but that shouldn't matter. So, like, how much damage is this? So we do Dragon Breath, then Combust, that's 733. So that goes from 3,500 to 4,500 and refreshes instantly. The question is, does this get consumed? Let me actually read. What does Dragon Breath do? Interesting. Okay, so the way this reads is that if you Dragon Breath, Combust, and it refreshes, your next Combust will also get the Dragon Breath buff. That's pretty good. I also don't have the further upgrade from the Enchantment of Flames. The other thing to consider is, does this bonus damage, the 40% bonus damage, does that increase the 200 flat that we're getting? That is something to consider. If it does increase the 200 flat, then that goes up to 240. So this becomes $940 plus 15% on the 700. So that's another 105. So that's 1045 up from 700. And then if you do Rack and Ruin, it's 7 hits. 7,000 damage bleed that has a chance to refresh itself seems really good. Maybe it doesn't need to be stronger. That seems really good. I don't know if it's better than giving out Fracture Staff. You can EOF your Fracture Staff, but again, you don't want crits with your dot setup. I think it needs to be stronger still, but that's really good. That's a lot of damage. So thematically, I like this a lot. I do believe that this needs to be a little bit stronger, but thematically, I like it a lot. Yeah, because like again, my thing is we are giving up crits. So if we're giving up crits, I guess we could run this with the Equilibrium Aura for an extra, what, 12% damage? Or is it 20%? I don't remember. Although I guess whatever it improves our damage by is just worse than Berserk Aura. So maybe Equilibrium just doesn't matter. Yeah, this could be good. So far it seems a little weak, but it could be good. And then we didn't even talk about this. Basic abilities generate additional 3.6 adrenaline. So the issue here again is that we don't really have adrenaline dumps, especially with no Fractured Staff. So I guess the question would be, what EOFs do we have for magic? Yeah, none of the magic weapons do dot damage. Magic being dual wield and being considered a dot ability could be nuts. That could be really, because Magma Tempest does a disgusting amount of damage. It's really, really, really good. Yeah, if Magma Tempest also becomes a dual wield ability, this might be enough. Again, the big issue that I would have is we are giving up the damage from Fracture Staff, so this needs to be competitive with Fracture Staff. Because you can't run both of these builds at the same time, even with an EOF. So, okay, let's see what they're doing with the magic ability changes. So, Concentrated Blast becomes a two-handed ability, okay? Sonic Wave and Magma Tempest become dual-wield abilities. This seems really good. I like this a lot. Because Sonic Wave also has the flow stack mechanic. So, you're not going to be able to really maximize on your flow because you don't have infinitely stacking flow. But if Elite Tectonic let us also get infinitely stacking flow, or like stack up to a cap where it lasts forever, but like it stacks up to a cap, now we're talking about really broken backloaded damage, but you're pretty weak early on in the fight, right? Because like imagine if flow stacked up to like 10x, so we get 80 flow, which I believe is what, 80% damage or something. What do flow stacks do exactly? Yeah, base ability chance by 1 per stack. Oh yeah, it already stacks up to 80 times. So if there was a way for stacks to last longer, that could be really, really nuts. You have Fasoa in Sunshine and dual wield outside Sunshine. The issue is that this wants to stack up quite a bit, and you're going to lose all of the stacks if you get rid of your weapons. These are mutually exclusive. Like, you're not going to be able to use both of these. Is this combat beta? It's going to be coming to live. Or it's going to be coming to a combat beta. But yeah, if there were a way to maintain Sonic Wave Stack so that you could sit at the cap, 80% ability damage plus a flat 200 ability damage on all of your dots, that could be like actually broken. Or not broken, but it could be extremely consistent. No RNG, really high damage against backloaded bosses. Where like you want more damage after the first minute of the fight. This could be really, really, really nuts. Also, this has really good synergies with Cinderbanes. So against poisonable bosses, you may opt into this playstyle anyways. So I don't hate this. I think thematically this is really, really cool. I've said that already. This seems weak. So until I get my hands on it, this seems like it could be a little bit stronger. And then, oh, so this is happening like soon. This is, am I going to be here for this? Let me check. Because I know I'm going away one of these weekends. So this is going live on Thursday. So next Thursday, this is live. So next Thursday's stream, we will test this. And then again, the following Tuesday. So that I can see what everyone else is saying about it. And, you know, because maybe there's stuff I haven't considered. But yeah, this seems good.